Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes, and today I'm talking to the home improvement business owner that is doing between $0 and $500,000 in annual revenue. If that's you, I highly recommend you pay a lot of attention over the next few minutes, as I'm going to summarize a longer form video that I made at Landscape Business Course and on MBAforentrepreneurs.com, where I talk about the most important things that you need to know if you're gonna grow your business past $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in annual revenue. This is also the reason why so many people you see in business, on social media, will grow their business to 3, 4 employees and then retreat back to being a solo operator. This is what keeps most people in the home improvement industries under $200,000 in annual revenue. Not to say that's a bad thing, absolutely not. And there'll definitely be people in the comments saying it's the only way to do it is do it solo, do it yourself. And I definitely can sympathize with that. But if you're wanting to grow a business that can run without you, can run on systems, and can run while you're on a vacation or doing things with your family or giving yourself a little more flexibility so you don't have to do work in the business, this is extremely important to know. I'm going to run the math of why people run into issues once they cross $200,000 in annual revenue, and why they'll go to $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and they'll retreat back to being a solo operator. Because here's the thing, I've talked about this before. I truly believe that between about $200,000 in annual revenue to about $500,000 in annual revenue, in this range, there is not a lot of extra profit being made. In this area, between 200,000, you could say 250,000 maybe, but in this area, I call this the wilderness, okay? The reason this is the wilderness is because this is where everyone wanders around, and they literally don't make any more profit at 200,000 compared to 500,000. And so people get disillusioned because they're like, why am I working over here with maybe 1 employee and I'm making $200,000 in annual revenue, and I'm making a good living, I'm making $70,000, $80,000 home in profit that I can live on, and over here I have 5, 6 employees, and yet over here I might be making the exact same amount. I might be making the same 60, 70K take-home pay, whereas over here I'm making the same exact amount. Why is that? Okay? Why is my profit the exact same at 200,000 to 500,000? Let's go ahead and take an example. Run the math here, because I want you to stay till the end, because I'm going to talk about what you can do to avoid this issue. And if you look on social media, especially in the home improvement space, in every single industry there are what I call micro-influencers, and I would consider myself a micro-influencer, okay? And in these industries, these influencers have a following, and what they do is you will see them document their business as they grow. The 1 employee, 2 employees, very exciting. I'm gonna work on the business now. I'm gonna be able to scale up, it's exciting. You get to 3, 4 employees, and then all of a sudden, you'll see them switch. And in 1 year, things will kind of fall apart. Things start to they get really stressed out. They usually have some sort of burnout, and they go right back to being a solo operator. Not to say that that's bad, because I think that some people should actually stay at being a solo operator. That's where they should stay at. But for the person that wants to grow beyond that, I want to make this example so you're prepared mentally and financially for what's to come, and so you can get past this stage of the wilderness. Let's go ahead and use this example. I'm going to make this up on the fly, so if I make some bad math mistakes, forgive me. Let's go ahead and assume that we are charging the customer $80 per hour, okay? And we're gonna start our business. Now, in this example, I'm gonna use lawn care and landscaping, but you could literally use this for any home improvement business. We're gonna charge $80 per hour. Now, we are gonna work our brains out, all right? Because we are working hard by ourselves out in the field every day. We're gonna complete 40 hours every single week, okay? And this is hours of budgeted hours actually on the property. We're probably working 50, 55 hours, but hey, we're a solo operator, we're kicking butt, we're super efficient. So this is literally making you $3,200 per week, all right? Now, we don't necessarily have year-round work. Most home improvement industries are somewhat seasonal. So I'm going to head ahead and assume that we are going to work 40 weeks in the year. All right, we have a bit of a down season. So if we do the math on that, that's 120 times 4. It's $128,000 in revenue, and that's all from labor, okay? Now, let's go ahead and just for the sake of this example, say that on top of the $128,000 in revenue for labor, we probably have another, let's just call it $20,000 in, let's call this cost of goods sold. This would be like your materials, any sort of extra costs like dumping fees that you charge a customer. So your total annual revenue literally being so low, and some people are going to say I'm crazy for saying this, but you can absolutely do this, and that is $148,000 in annual revenue by yourself. Now, keep in mind, you're extremely efficient and you're working crazy hours. The amount of hours you're gonna have to put in to get 40 hours on the job site means that you're probably gonna work 50 hours, 55 hours, plus then do work when you get home. So you're working like crazy. Now, out of this $148,000, obviously this is gross revenue. This is not net profit. This is literally just the top line revenue. Let's go ahead and look at some of the expenses that you're gonna have from this business. First and foremost, let's just go ahead and assume about $12,000 for your truck. And that's gonna be like $1,000 a month, brakes, tires, fuel, all of that good stuff. Now let's go ahead and say about $100 a month, $200 a month for insurance. Let's just call that $2,000. Let's go ahead and get some shop space, maybe $300, $400 a month. Let's call that $4,000. Let's do it, titling, insurance, making sure you have a good bookkeeper, all the rest of it. Let's go ahead and do $10,000 for that. We get a good accountant, a good lawyer. We get everything set up in terms of our legal, maybe an LLC. What else do we got in a business? We got miscellaneous things. These are going to be things like, for a lawn care business, you got blades, you have your trimmer line, you have fuel cans, little trimmer tools, things like that are expendable. I'm not talking about the initial start of the business, right? That $12,000 for that truck, by the way, is just $1,000 a month in equipment, or the maintenance of the truck, the fuel for the truck, etc. I'm talking about expendable. This is not the initial outlay of the buying trucks, etc. But let's just go ahead and assume with like trimmer line and all these other expendables that we kind of gloves, things that we might break occasionally. Let's just go ahead and call that like $500 a month. So let's call it $6,000. Okay, great. So let's do 6,000, that's 16, that's 20, that's 20, 34,000. So $34,000 in expenses. There we have it. Okay, I'm being pretty conservative, but let's just go ahead and run the math on this. So if we take $148,000 in annual revenue and we take out $34,000, that means our net profit for the business, let me go and take a red marker here, is going to be what? 30, it's going to be 18, 118, 100. And is that right? $114,000 in profit. After taxes, you're probably going to take $90,000 home in take-home profit. Not bad. Now, you are working absolutely like a dog, absolutely crazy hours. You will need to work 60 plus hours a week just to keep this up, because 40 is on the property, another 10, 15 driving around getting the job done, another 15, 20 potentially even doing estimates, etc. You are working like a dog, but you are bringing home some serious bacon. So let's go ahead and see what happens now as the business begins to grow and we start to get in some employees. Because this is what starts to happen. Let's go ahead and assume now that this person's going to make $300,000 in annual revenue. Okay, and they may get their first employee, very exciting. Get a good focus on the estimates, the marketing. Very excited about the fact that you're going to work on the business now instead of in the business, and that's all fine and good. However, let's go ahead and look at the math on this, because check this out. Let's go ahead and do this one before. So over here we had $148,000 was our revenue, and we had a profit of 114K in profit. Okay, what this implies, if we go ahead and do the math, let's go ahead and take our trusty calculator out here. We're going to take $114,000, divide that by $148,000, and we're going to get a 77% profit margin. Okay, let's go. This is the reason why you're so profitable when you're solo and maybe one employee. Because even if I get one employee, I'm not going to be 77% efficient. I'm not going to be 77% profitable, I should say. However, I am going to be like 40, 50% profitable even after I pay their wages. Because even if I have to pay someone out of this, pay them an extra $20,000, $30,000 a part-timer, still not making a bad profit margin. I might be 50, 60% in profit margin even if I have a part-time helper occasionally. So again, I get one employee, things are going great. Let's go ahead and look at the numbers with one employee. All right, this is what draws people into growing the business. So now let's go ahead and see with this first employee, I'm now able to have $200,000 in annual revenue, okay? So now this is one employee, okay? $200,000 in annual revenue, but you're not gonna make $114,000 in profit. Why? Because now I've gotta get a second truck, doubling the cost of my insurance, doubling the cost of what I'm spending on car payments, doubling the cost of my fuel. Everything's gonna go up. I'm not also gonna pay wages. So I'm gonna pay someone $30,000, $40,000 for the year to have them be my employee. And I have to spend money on advertising to find those employees. And now I'm not gonna be able to do 40 hours out in the field. I might only be able to do 30 hours out in the field on a customer's property because I've got to do more estimates. I've got to train, manage, hire, interview, trying to find a new employee, because guess what? First employee doesn't stick around for about 2 or 3 weeks. I gotta get another one, and then I gotta get another one. Then I'm always interviewing. I'm trying to find somebody else, and so I don't get my 40 hours in. I only get 30, and now I've got to hire them, and they don't get 40 either. They get 25 or 30. So all of a sudden, I don't go up to $300,000 in revenue. I only go up to $200,000, and yet now my profit might literally be $120,000. Okay? A little bit more than before, but not a lot. But this is the thing. If I look at my profit margins, it just went down to 60%. Okay? So our margin is decaying, and this is normal. As you grow a business, as you scale up, your margins typically go down because you're having more overhead, you're having more insurance, you're having wages. And this is what happens now as we cross the $200,000 marker. Watch what happens to our profit margins. And this is why people, they get very excited about this, because guess what? It's a nice spot to be at this stage, 200,000, 250,000, get 1, maybe 2 employees helping you out, good profit margin, 40 to 60%, very doable. But now let's go ahead and bump it up to say 4 employees, okay? Now, at 4 employees, you're so busy doing estimates, managing the crew, hiring people, answering the phone, doing emails, just doing customer service, people that are unhappy, all this other stuff that you do 0 work in the field. There's no 40 hours of you doing work in the field. And instead of being a revenue producing machine and literally producing $148,000 in revenue by yourself, instead of that, now you have 4 employees that you're just managing all the time, and you actually are an overhead expense to the business. You cost money because you drive around all day in your truck and you're not producing any revenue. The most efficient, most profitable person in your business, which is you, that was the best at doing the work, is no longer out in the field working. Instead, you're trying to manage other people that get maybe 50 or 60% of what you would have got done in a day. That's what they're performing at. So now with these 4 employees, we're gonna go ahead and do $400,000 in annual revenue. But because we have 4 employees, now we have 4 trucks, now we have a bigger shop space, so our rent went from $300 or $400 a month at a storage facility. Now we're paying $1,200 a month for a shop space because we need the land to be able to park the trucks, have some space to dump. We gotta make sure it's locked up, so we got a fenced area. We're paying way more in rent. We're paying way more in insurance because now your general liability is at no $100. Just for your trucks, you're paying $500, $600 a month. Now for your general liability, you might be paying $500, $600 a month because you got 4 employees and you're doing other jobs. You're doing bigger services. You're offering services outside of the basic stuff you were doing by yourself. And this is the trap that people fall into. So at $400,000 in annual revenue, and now all of a sudden, we have all these employees, we have all their mistakes and things are happening, and guess what? We only make $60K. And if we actually do the math on this, is it 15%? I think it's 10, 15, I think it's 15%. Yeah, I think it's a 15% profit margin. Which honestly, if you actually look at the industry average for lawn care and landscaping companies, if you run a 10% margin business, you're kind of like not great, but okay. 12% is the average. 15% is actually half decent for a larger company. Obviously over here, not the case. But when you start hitting $1 million plus, 15% margin is fantastic. But 15% margin here just so happens that my profit, because this is my profit right here, is actually going down. I'm making half as much in profit at $400,000 annual revenue because guess what? I stopped becoming a producer of revenue of $148,000 and that went to 0. And instead, now I actually cost the business money because I'm driving around, I'm spending money on gas and fuel and an extra truck to keep everyone busy. I might even have to go get an office person to answer the phone, do emails. My shop space, now I gotta get an office space and pay for utilities and internet and computers, all this other stuff. All of that is costing what's called overhead. These are things that are not attributed to the actual job getting done, which before that's the only thing we were paying for. COGS, cost of goods sold, direct labor, direct materials. No longer is that what we're paying for. We're paying for what's called overhead, things that have nothing to do with the actual job itself. The office person is overhead. The shop space is overhead. All the extra insurance is overhead. All the extra fuel is overhead. This is what's eating your profits for lunch at this size of a business. And you're only now making $60,000 in profit. And now, instead of having the physical pressure and pain and stress of working 50, 60 hours a week, now you're working 50, 60 hours a week, but you're not working physically hard. In fact, you're actually gaining 20, 30 pounds because you're driving around all the time doing estimates, not actually doing physical labor. But at this stage now, all of a sudden, you have the stress of all these employees that call out. They call out sick. They do bad job. Now you have to fix their problems. And you're running after them, and you're always making sure they're not slacking off, and you have to fire them, and then all of a sudden they don't show up, and you're trying to hire more people, and you're caught in this vicious cycle of psychological stress and financial pressure, because now all of a sudden you're not taking home as much pay. Now you have to pay workers' compensation. Now someone gets hurt on the job, and you have to deal with all these issues, and people are complaining, and then they want more money, and then they're not working hard, and then they make a mistake on someone's job, and they make a $5,000 error, and you can't go to the insurance because you already did that last month, and now all of a sudden, if you do it again, they might drop your insurance. And these are the type of things that wear down on you as a business owner, to everybody, including myself. I now have 8 locations that I own of Augusta Lawn Care and over 120 locations that are franchised. I went through this. Everyone goes through this. And if you're struggling right now and you're in this stage, I promise you, everyone has gone through what you're going through. Now let's talk about what you can do to get out of this death spiral, because as you grow this business, it'll get more psychologically damaging and hard and stressful and less financial rewarding, and that's why people give up. And they're like, forget this. Forget making $60,000 in profit dealing with all these employee issues and customer problems. I'm just going to go back to becoming a solo operator. And for some people, that is the right thing to do. For some people, this is actually, I actually think for a lot of people, this is where they should stay at. $200,000, $250,000, one employee. They can manage that employee with their, have their eyes on them all day long, make sure that they pay them very well. They're not a lot of churn, not a lot of psychological issues. They're working more in the business. For some people, this is really where they should stay at. But if your goal is to grow the business beyond that and build a business that runs without you and provide jobs for your local community and build a business that you can pass on to your family down in generations, here's the things that you got to be focused on. There's definitely ways of being able to prevent this type of burnout. There's ways to prevent this sort of psychological damage as you go through that wilderness of $200,000 to $500,000 in annual revenue. First and foremost, it's very simple. Prepare for the wilderness. Know that it's going to come. So what that means is have enough dry powder. What I mean by that is have enough money to be able to scale the business from $200,000 in annual revenue to $500,000 in annual revenue very quickly. Because there's not going to be any additional profit, because there's a lot of overhead that comes in that space. You're not going to be working in the field anymore. You become an overhead expense. You have to upgrade your shop space and insurance and get an office person and all these other things. So you're not going to, you know that. You know you're not going to make any more profit. So what do? Have enough dry powder, which means you might stay at $200,000 or $250,000 for a year, 2, 3 years, and stack some money up. So you can go get a couple trucks, get a few employees, and very quickly spend money on marketing and get to the place of 500 plus down the road. But make sure you have enough dry powder so that financially you're not going to have to give up in that period of time. And you can do it quickly. Even if you have a little bit of waste, even if you don't figure everything out just perfectly in your marketing and you don't hire the exact right people, you have enough dry powder to at least take some of the financial pressure away that's going to be there if you don't prepare for the wilderness of $200,000 to $500,000. Okay? The next thing you can do, simplify services. The reason that most people simplify services, the reason that most people give up during that period of time is because the reason they're growing their top line revenue is because they're adding more services. Because when they were solo, they just did mowing, for example. And now they're adding bush trimming and mulch installs and paver patios and retaining walls and excavation, and they're doing using a big flail mower on an excavator. And all of a sudden they're doing all these projects and they're growing top line revenue but not profit. But what's causing them to eventually quit down the road isn't actually so much I see the financial issues, it's the psychological pressure. And by simplification of services, there's less intimidation that comes with these massive projects that you can lose your shirt on. Massive contracts that you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on a massive commercial maintenance package. And it's a year round. It's so fantastic. And you can lose your shirt on those. By adding in services that are complicated, highly skilled, you can become vulnerable now to potentially losing your shirt on a job to employees that know a lot about the work, but you have to hire them and deal with all of their junk because you don't know how to do the work yourself. So simplify your services. And the third thing is exactly what I just did that you'll need to do for your business, and it is run the math. Okay? Now, before I talk about this one, because it's the most important, let's just be very clear. I expect, and I really do think that I deserve a subscribe. Okay? There are thousands of people that are going to watch this video, and they've watched many of my videos and never subscribed. It's like when you go to the store and you see a little thing that's like, give a penny, take a penny. Now, I am currently giving a penny with the hopes that one day someone is also going to give a penny back in return. Now, this content doesn't cost you a single penny to watch. It's literally right now 11:30 p.m. By the time I finish this video, edit it, put it up, it's going to be 1 o'clock. I do this completely for free. That is my penny that I give. And the only penny I ask for you to give in return is a subscribe. So please do that. It's the gentleman's agreement. Give a penny, take a penny. I give something, I also expect you to go ahead and give a penny as well, which is a subscribe. Thank you very much. Number 3, comment below if you subscribe for the first time after watching many of my videos, because I know there's a lot of you out there. All right, let's go ahead and run the math. This is so important, especially for your first and second employee, because if you run the math of how profitable you are in your business without your salary, very important. Here's the thing. If I would take my $114,000, profit, there you go. It's like, okay, great. That's what I was making in quote unquote profit in the business. However, if I take away my salary, what I would have to pay someone else to do the work themselves, it gets very interesting. Because if I was working 60 hours a week and I would pay someone, what is it? $20 an hour, let's just call it 20 bucks an hour, you're literally looking at $1,200 a week. Add on taxes and insurance, you might be looking at $1,500 per week for someone. That's all of a sudden $75,000 that I'm kind of fudging because I'm doing all the labor. And down the road, I'm not going to be able to do all the labor. So if you actually take your $114,000 in profit and you take away what you would otherwise have to pay someone else to do the work, you're like, oh, it's not going to cost me $75,000 for one person. You're right. You're going to have to get 2 people to do the amount of work that you're doing because you're working like crazy hours, like crazy, man. So if you take out that $75,000, now all of a sudden you have what, 25? That's $39,000 in actual profit. And this is what you should be counting yourself up against. This is what you should be comparing yourself to. Because now, when you have the 4 employees, making $60,000 doesn't seem so bad. Why? You're actually making 50% more than you were before, because before you were doing all the work yourself. Now, if you were to hire out all the work, do the math of what you're actually making in profit for the business. Not for you doing the work, but how much does the business make after you take away your salary, what you're constantly working in the business. There's a dollar amount associated with that. So what would the business be making if you were to go hire out your position and you didn't have to be there? That's truly how much profit the business makes. Not how much you take home, but the business makes after you would have paid yourself. And that is where most people fail, is that if they actually took out what they would otherwise be paying someone else to work the crazy hours that they're working in the business, they're actually not very profitable. And this is a very, very generous situation. I actually feel like most people are taking $60,000, $70,000 in profit as a solo operator and like, this is great. And they start growing and they wonder why they literally go to 0 in profit. It's simply because they're not charging enough. They're not running the math on being able to make sure that they're charging a high enough price to accommodate the fact that as you scale up, you're gonna have to hire wages, you're gonna have to pay wages and hire people to be able to do the work for you. Very, very important. Comment below which of these three hit home the most to you. And if you've already grown past $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, comment below another fourth, fifth, what else helped you get through this stage? Because this is where most people quit. This is why the majority of home service businesses stay solo. And if they try to go breach that veil and get a few employees, they'll retreat back to this stage. I'm Mike Andes. If you'd like to support the channel or learn more about me, in the description there's a whole bunch of links. We do a whole bunch of services, including web design, taxes, bookkeeping. We do a whole bunch of different tasks, and I hope it is helpful for you. So check out the description and the links in there, and check out mikeandes.com. We'll see you tomorrow.